Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today on Robbie South Teaches How Money Works, the podcast where you learn how money works. Today, we're going to be talking about women and their professions and how, in some cases, they don't always earn equal pay to a man and how they can overcome that gap and earn just as much as any other person that's in this field. So we have a very, very special guest. And this is going to kind of carry on from a lot of the other events that we've been talking about lately. Last month, we talked about domestic violence and financial abuse. So we're going to expand on getting in a better financial situation with this topic today. So we're going to go ahead and welcome Miss Barbara Tilka, who has been doing this for a number of years, has a lot of experience, and is just a wonderful, wonderful person. Miss Barbara, if you would just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, work history, that type of stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. So my background was, I spent probably about 15 years out of college in a corporate career. I was in a transportation company that happened to be more men than women. In my division, there were only 2 of us in management, and the rest were men. And so, not surprising, I didn't have a lot of opportunity for advancement because it was a very inequitable situation. I was paid less than my male counterparts who had less education and less experience. Kind of shocking, but that was the reality. I left that over 20 years ago to help people with their finances, particularly in the finance, real estate financing area. And then I attended a women's event with the How Money Works company. And it was an event teaching women how money works. And I was just really excited because it was a great opportunity and a lot of women had a lot of questions. So I've been doing that for a long time and I really enjoyed that.
Well, that's great. And like you was mentioning how, you was kind of at the best way I know how to say it's a disadvantage just because you're a female in the workplace where you was before in the advancement. And that's not fair to you. I mean, you can't help that. If you've got more knowledge and skills, then in my opinion, the best person is to get the job, regardless of who or whatever you are. And that's a shame that happens, but it has happened, and I think it still happens today, unfortunately. But we're glad that you are here and you have moved on. And speaking of women events, you said that you actually stumbled across a women's event for How Money Works, and that's how you got into the business. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was a guest speaker talking about credit and helping women understand how to have a good credit rating. Unfortunately, statistically, a lot of women, especially the attendees, had not built their credit because they'd relied on their husband's credit rating. Nothing wrong with that, but when life events happen, they may find themselves in a situation where they don't have a credit rating and they need to build it. So I did that. I was a guest speaker and there were a number of other women speaking and a lot of great questions that women had and they really wanted to learn. And so that's why I decided to join this business and add all the other things that we do in this How Money Works business, in addition to the credit piece that I was doing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, we're always, wanting to encourage women to come to these events just so they can expand on their knowledge. Because like you said, a lot of times they rely on the other person to handle the finances. So why is it so important, you think, that women really buckle down and learn how money really works?
Well, I think statistically, we tend to be in a situation where we take breaks in our work history. So we have less money saved for retirement. And again, this is generally, there are exceptions. We tend to take breaks to take care of our children, our partners, our spouses, and our parents. And we tend to outlive our spouses. And therefore, we live longer. We need more to save. And so there's a lot of things about money that we cannot defer to our partners. We need to pay attention and understand because we may find ourselves having to make decisions for our family. I think 95% of us will be making decisions for our family's money, our parents' money. And so we need to know some really good resources and some good education.
Absolutely. And you can't make decisions if you're not informed. I mean, it's just the way it is. So you make some very good points there that, you know, even in a job where a male and female, for example, are making the same dollar amount, if they're hourly and the female has to take off, well, she's going to lose hourly wages. So she's actually going to be making less in the long run. You made a very good point there.
Yeah.
Taking care of the children, and the parents. I can attest to my mother. She was already retired, fortunately, but she took care of my grandmother for years, when she
Mhm.
was older. If she hadn't been retired, I don't know what would have happened, because it would have been a very challenging situation. So those are some very good points on learning how money works. And during that process, you can plan for some of these other events that happen. Is that correct?
Right. So we do a lot in our business. We help families make sure that they are contributing to a retirement account for, a stay-at-home mom, for instance. The IRS allows us to contribute to what they call a spousal IRA. So you can continue to be saving. You don't have to be working at a company to contribute and save over time. And of course, paying attention to things like long-term care planning, because if we statistically live longer and we have a higher chance of needing long-term care, we need to plan for that so that we have a choice who cares for us, and we don't have the next generation taking a break from work without pay. So
Absolutely. That's some very good information. So, why do you think women tend to save less for retirement? I mean, if they have the opportunity to put in and do all the other things just like anybody else, why don't they take advantage of that?
well, I think historically, women don't tend to get financial advisors or attend meetings with their spouse. Of course, our company is very different. We make sure that, both partners are in attendance, but, teaching concepts to both of, partners in the couple. We tend to historically have more male financial advisors. And I've found women want to work with women. So that's really changed with our business. But so if women aren't paying attention, not saving, not knowing how to save or invest, and not getting the help, they tend to fall behind in their savings. And statistically, it's close to $500,000 in less savings over their lifetime. So that's quite a problem if we tend to live longer,
Well, absolutely. And that's something that should be brought to the forefront so that we can have the conversations and made aware of this. I'm sure you can relate. You were speaking about having both spouses in on the meetings. As a matter of fact, I'm dealing with a client right now. I've spoken with the husband multiple times. Well, for whatever reason, the spouse, the wife, has not been able to join the meetings. And we're ready to move on for the next phase with the husband. And he's like, yes, let's do it. We're ready. Let's go. But he hasn't been able to get his wife on board yet. She hasn't attended the meetings. So that's one of the big reasons that we encourage both of them to be on the meetings from the very start, to build that credibility, trustworthiness, and stuff like that. Is that a good, accurate statement?
Well, yeah, she definitely has to have a voice. She has to share her questions. She has to understand the planning process. And regardless of who's writing the bills, who's paying the bills, it has nothing to do with whose income is bigger or if someone is not working. It is an equal partnership in understanding the money in, the money out, and the planning. And so it doesn't make sense for us to be working with one person and not have the other person involved. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And for many, many years, I was in public safety, and you never know when something's going to happen. But to your point, to where both of you need to know what's going on. If, let's say, the husband is taking care of all the bills, for example, and then something happens to him to where he's unable, even if it's for a short period of time, maybe 2 or 3 months, or it could be the rest of her life. If for whatever reason he is unable to fulfill that requirement anymore, that's going to add stress and all kind of other problems on her during an already stressful time that could have been possibly avoided just by being informed and knowing all the information.
Right. Yeah. And I've had those situations where I've had to, what I call a fire drill, pardon the expression, where I've been called in to help someone who didn't have the planning in place, didn't participate. And I had to help her figure out if he'd filed the taxes and did they have life insurance? Where are the investment accounts? Who's the beneficiary? I mean, all of the things, you're grieving the loss of your spouse. The last thing you need is to try and, figure out finances in a panic. Those are situations that we can help people, but we'd rather be a part of the planning ahead of time.
Absolutely. Now, you said that you've been with Wealthwave here for several years, correct?
Yes.
And you was doing another business before that, your own credit building business. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, I was really helping families recover from a lot of the mortgage crisis, the housing crisis, and just building back their financial life, focused on the credit piece and making sure they could, get a house again and so forth. And all the other things that they really needed to understand is where I partnered with Wealthwave, and I've made it a full-time business, and it's been a great business. And teaching people, I teach other people how to build this business as well. So I have associates that I work with.
Oh, very good. So, what made you decide, and why would you encourage other women to make the transition from what they were doing before, what they're doing now, like you did? You made your transition from the credit side of it to doing this on a more full-time basis. What attracted you here, and why would somebody else want to come on board and do this?
Well, I would say the number one reason was our mission, and seeing a hotel meeting room full of women, 80 to 100 women who really needed help. So I saw the need, and it's a big problem that we're solving. And the next thing is, it's a way to make a great living and build a business. It's a turnkey business that has all of the tools, all of the financial solutions that you can provide a family. And more than anything, I became a client. I got to really learn how money works and all of my financial plan, and then teach others and build a business doing that. So there was no question when I learned of this business, this opportunity, and that I could be paid the same as a man. I could advance as quickly as I wanted. I started part-time because I had a business I was running. I made it full-time very soon after that, but it was really good for me to have the flexibility to learn this business and earn at the same time with the mentorship that we have in our business and the way it's structured. So I have a lot of people that are earning money while they're learning, and I'm teaching them. And it's a great business. And I think women tend to really like the flexibility. A lot of the women I'm working with, because maybe they're a grandmother and they want to spend some time with their grandchildren or travel, or young mothers that I'm working with, that they have some flexibility and they can earn some income for the family, but not, have time away from the family. So that's really biggest benefits that I found.
Very good. Now, you did mention promotions. Now, I know in a corporate world, you have your set structures. You can only have so many managers and so many, department managers, and so many, so on and so forth, all the way up to the CEO. There's a limited number of people. So in this field here, what are those numbers that we can promote whatever number of people to, and how does that work?
Well, this is a very different business structure. We can work in all 50 states. Of course, with COVID shutdown, we went virtual, which, I can have associates all over the country. And of course, I have clients all over the country. But what was really interesting to me was that I could control my advancement. As big as my business builds, and as much, as many families as I'm helping and how much I'm earning dictates how big my contract gets. So I don't have to wait for someone to vacate a spot to get promoted. And I also, more importantly, don't need wait for someone to say, oh, I think Barb should be promoted. It's not that, it's not subjective in that way. So I really dictate whether I get promoted within 6 months or 6 years. And being able to make as much money as I want is, certainly satisfying. And to really help families, it's a win-win. I mean, it's a validating role that we play, because you just know both of you win. You know, your family's better off that you're helping, and of course, you know, you make a good living at it.
Absolutely. And I personally, I don't know of any other place around to where you can have promotions without somebody leaving the company, dying off, or whatever the case may be, to create an
Yeah.
opening. Yeah, that for me, that's really unheard of. But
And
that's
then
inevitable.
that's probably why we have record numbers of people joining this business, and especially women. You know, we have more women than any other financial services company in this industry. And so, you know, part of that is because of the structure and the flexibility. The other part is, you know, as they say, you can't be what you can't see. I saw a lot of women leaders. I could identify with the people that I was, you know, meeting. And I think it made it a lot easier for me to relate to the fact that I could do this. I could do this business.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned since I've been on with the company and I really enjoy is some of the women leaders that we have that I have met personally, yourself, Miss Kim Schuler, Andrea Jenkins, these different people that I've had on my podcast in the past. They are just absolutely inspirational people to learn from. And the fact that Kim has been a part of writing a book for women to help them in this transition, what other financial company out there other than us has that opportunity?
Yeah, and that's true. We will be getting a new book coming out, How Money Works for Women, Take Control or Lose It. And it's co-authored with, you know, Kim Schooler and Sharon Lechter, who's, you know, the famous author of Think and Grow Rich and you know, that whole series. And we're just really excited because there are some unique situations that women typically find themselves in that we're addressing in that book. So we're excited that's coming out shortly in the fall, and we'll be doing a lot more women's events with that book as well.
So kind of to expand on what you just mentioned, so there are life situations that are more unique for a woman than a man?
Well, there are situations, and we talk about it in the book. You know, women, if they're single parents, you know, tend to be the primary custodial parent and are handling the household, you know, finances, whether with support or not. So we address those situations. We also see with the long-term care situation, women tend to be the caregiver in the family that takes a break from work to help take care of mother or mother-in-law or her spouse. So there's a situation there. We often find some women may have adult children come back to live with them again to help support them. So, you know, those are all the situations, just to give some examples that we, you know, we'll be addressing in the book. And, you know, just statistically, we find those are higher incidents with women. And so we're teaching through that.
And you brought a very good point about how a single mother is going to have to take off because she's the primary caregiver, right? The other parent may or may not be involved. And if they're not, then they have to rely on that mother to do everything, doctor's appointment, school, everything. So in that situation, with this business model that we offer here, with the flexibility, that could be ideal for a single mother. Is that a good statement?
Well, you've got a great point. I do have a lot of single moms that, you know, have a full-time job and are building this business part-time, because this allows them to add income to satisfy their financial goals without having to leave their kids. It's got some flexibility. I have a lot of people that can work remotely and working flexibly around their work schedule. So that is another reason why we have more women that are coming to work with us. Definitely.
And that's always a great option, because right now, I know where I live, I'm hearing a lot of people really talk about work-life balance and how they are striving to achieve that, which it's a great thing. You shouldn't have to deny your family time away from them just for your job and to bring money in to be able to survive. I mean, we're seeing record high inflation right now,
Mhm.
and some people are barely getting by. And it's sad that people don't always know about these opportunities, and I don't know how money works, because I would venture to say most people, at least in my area, have never had an education on how money really works. What's your experience with that?
Well, and that's the thing. We find a lot of women who want, maybe an extra side business or side job without increasing their childcare costs, leaving the family. There's a lot of people that are doing, direct marketing businesses, whether it's shakes or jewelry or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. But what we find is those same people, when they find us, they realize that this is a business that everybody needs help with. There are so many things that we do, and we address just about every demographic. I mean, there's nothing we can't handle as far as, whether someone is trying to get out of debt or handle a, inheritance. There's a lot of different variations. So we do find a lot of people do like this business model when they're reaching for something that they need, part-time. We do have a lot of, just as back when the real estate business turned very much like women flocking into that industry. That's what we're experiencing in our company now, with more women, coming to do what we do.
Very good. We want to expand, and we will welcome them in with open arms. So, what are some of the common mistakes you see women make with money in your experiences?
Well, and we actually teach a class that addresses kind of the most common mistakes. Number one, I think we find is that if you've got the mother at home taking care of children, not working for pay outside the home, they tend to overlook life insurance and not doing that planning. And as we all know, it's invaluable, to have someone taking care of your children at home. What does that cost if you lose that parent? If the other parent is working, in order for them to, have that caregiving. And so not doing life insurance is definitely one of the biggies. On that note, on the insurance side, is not planning for long-term care. When you're young and healthy, that's the best time to get it. And to really understand what your options are, but to make sure, since we tend to live longer and have a higher chance of needing long-term care funding, that's definitely one thing that women tend to forget to do. Another one I think is, I mentioned earlier, is just not having a retirement plan. You don't have to be going to work at a company that provides a retirement plan to save for retirement. And that's what I spend a lot of time doing when I sit down with a couple, is filling in that gap, making sure that she is contributing. And she doesn't have to be working to be contributing to what we call a spousal plan. Another thing that I often find is, women may be really good at knowing how much they're spending on groceries, what the child care center costs, and so forth. But do they really know, how are they projecting towards retirement, 20, 30, 40 years? Are they sitting in the meetings with the advisor? Whether the advisor is a friend of their husband's or not, they need to be in on the meetings and understand and insist on getting answers to simple questions to some people may not understand is, what is the investment? How does it work? What are some of the investment terms and those types of things. And then, of course, the other thing is just not understanding investing. And when we talk about that versus saving and different ways to do that. So those are kind of a common thread that I see when I'm sitting down with women who've not ever worked with an advisor.
And each one of those are extremely important because, we've already established that women make less than men on average. So if you don't start planning while you're young, there gets a point in life where you can't catch up. I mean, it's mathematically impossible.
Or you work longer.
Exactly. And who wants to work until they're 80 or 90 years old? I know I don't want to,
Right. Not unless you love what you're doing, but yeah.
Right. So those are some very, very good concepts. And, kind of to expand on one of the points you made about getting this younger rather than waiting till you're older. One of the things that I'm personally seeing right now as I'm working with a client, they're old, they're not old, but they're older, and they're seeing a need for some more insurance than what they have now. So we're trying to help that client, but we're kind of feel like we're getting into a roadblock because of some of the issues, whether it be the height, the weight, the medical history, those types of things. So if you establish this when you're younger, it's not only a lot cheaper, which you learn how money works and you can maintain that throughout the contract, but it's also a lot easier to qualify for because you don't have encounters a lot of these medical problems throughout life.
Well,
So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, when you're young and healthy, you don't know what the future holds. And insurance companies are going to assess your risk. And if you're unhealthy or you're at risk, you either pay a lot or don't get approved. And so that's the challenge when usually life happens to someone or someone they know, which makes them pay attention and go, uh-oh, I think we need to be in, do some planning.
yes.
Well, if you waited too long, you're either paying a lot or you run the risk of not being approved and not being able to plan. And that's hard.
Absolutely. All right. Well, is there anything else you would like to add before we close out the show today?
I think that, we definitely have some great classes available at all the times. You have virtual and live. And of course, the book will be coming out. And we're excited about that. So I thank you for having me.
We appreciate you coming on. And as always, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach me on the web, robbiesouth.com, Facebook, Robbie South Teaches How Money Works. I'm also on Instagram. Barbara, how could they reach you if they want to get a hold of you?
Howmoneyworks.com and my first and last name. So howmoneyworks.com/Barbara Tilka. Be happy to answer any questions people have. So I look forward to hearing from anyone who's got questions.
Absolutely. And feel free to check out our Facebooks, especially because we're all the time posting different events that are going to be happening there, whether they're virtual or online. So you may not always hear us, specifically say a date on here of when the class is coming up, but keep an eye out on our Facebook because we post there when they're coming up. Thank you for listening. Y'all have a wonderful day.